All right, we're back. Brian Knudson, Ryan Barath. I don't remember which way it shows. Back again. Do a little talking about new product, and this week or this episode is new Ping G410 stuff. So it was pretty exciting. We were both down at the PGA show. I got to finally see it in hand. And what are your initial thoughts, Ryan, of G410?
I think with the driver and the whole series, they always have this philosophy to problem solve. And for Ping, it's been about continuing to evolve as far as their custom fitting goes and offer the ability to give golfers better numbers. We've got adjustable weight in the driver. We've got an adjustable hosel in the hybrid, which they've never done before. They've got faster fairway woods. Same thing with adjustability. More adjustability now, as we kind of discovered trying to mess around with some golf shafts. And then there was also the iron, which at this point they've eliminated at least part of the custom tuning port. They've kind of slowly evolved away from that, and they're weighting their irons a little differently, which is the first time in company history they've done that.
For sure, that's a good summary. So let's start with driver, because that's what everybody talks about first. So driver, we've got two models. Typically Ping has had three, but right now we're only getting two. Yeah. Potentially the third one is later on down the road. And the 410s, I really like them. Like I said, movable weights for the first time in a driver, and it's kind of a sleek design to it. It's right on the back where the crown and the sole kind of meet. It's right on the back. It seems to be really slick. Doesn't stand out. It's not protruding. And I like the idea that they're moving that mass all the way to the outside of the club and offers you that draw, neutral, or fade bias to the driver. So I'm excited to mess around with that.
Yeah, it offers simplicity, which is great. 3 settings. You don't have to worry about trying to figure out in between settings or have people kind of second guessing things. And then on top of that, they're really kind of putting their effort and full foot forward with the idea that they're still maximizing forgiveness. We talked to them about it, and they said that they never wanted to do a driver that had movable weight and then had problems with MOI or had decreases in MOI. And this was their way of solving that problem. They've also got the counterweight, which allows them to add a little bit more mass to the club head. So more mass, more energy transfer, faster ball speed. And just overall, I think what they've done is they've just created a better driver for fitting as well as something that's going to help golfers hopefully hit more fairways and then hit a little longer too.
Yeah, for sure. And, you kind of mentioned the more adjustability there as well. It does have a new adapter for the first time in a couple generations. I'm a little bummed about that. I mean, I totally get it, and I love more adjustability. I'm a little bummed only because I'm going to have to go buy a bunch of new adapters. So that's a little bit of a bummer that the old one doesn't work. But I do like the fact that you get to adjust. You have more settings. You get to affect more of the loft settings. Thing will go probably a little more upright, or it does give you more options. But it is a bummer that all the shafts that you had with Ping tips, from G400, G series, unfortunately aren't going to work anymore. But I guess that's just the nature of the beast with with Ping.
Yeah, and I think maybe getting a fitting, Brian, and maybe settling on one for a whole season. Yeah. Who are we kidding here? But with that, you're getting more adjustability. And then obviously with the other model, which is the SFT, I don't believe there was any. They don't offer adjustability. They saved all of that mass and just kind of crammed it towards the heel in that driver. I think it's like 50% more mass relocated versus previous SFT models. The thing is just designed to hook or not slice as much, which for most golfers or a lot of golfers is a big benefit.
Exactly. Yeah, no. And it's interesting, like, you just mentioned the SFT because that's been in the line before. They've always had, kind of the standard model in SFT. And then there was also an LST, which is typically the slightly more compact or lower spinning version. That doesn't come out right away. We didn't get to see that. The rumblings are that it comes out later in the year. Do you think, to me, it's a bummer. I think all three should come out at the same time. How do you feel about them kind of holding on to that one for later on?
I think it's always been their MO. And with that, it's people who are into that product are again, more along the better players. So they're less likely to switch as often in general. Obviously, that's a generalization. But they've said, and we got to talk to Paul Wood. We had, which I think is up on the site as well. that they really only bring things out. They have to justify to their whole engineering team. They have to justify to the people that oversee the company, essentially, that they will not release a new product until it is substantially better than the previous one. And we've seen that with other lines where they've had the iBlade, for example, something that's really carried on for a good period of time. And with that, they don't feel the need to update it because it performs really well. And if they can't kind of create something that's in that same space, in that same category that's better, they're just going to let it sit there. And because it works, right? I mean, if it's not broke, don't fix it. That's kind of their philosophy. They're obviously always trying to re-engineer. They're always working at something. But if they can't solve that problem, they're not going to bring that out to the consumer.
Yeah, and I also like the new crown on it. So the crown has now got internal dragonfly, which before it was more visible. I mean, the crown isn't perfectly smooth. It still has turbulators. It still has some kind of texture to the top of it, but they moved a lot of that dragonfly tech inside the head now. So it does give it a little cleaner look when you look down on it. The G400 never bothered me with it. Same thing with the G series. I was fine with the way it was, but it does give it a little cleaner look to it for people who that's a big deal.
Yeah, it's funny, like as far as the looks go, because as you say, the top's a lot cleaner. And I'll be honest, I think the first renditions of the color, when I saw it, I was like red.
Yeah.
And then as soon as I got it in hand, I didn't even think about it. Obviously, it's at the bottom of the driver, and we've heard other people complain or kind of heard general complaints about other drivers and how bright their colors are and things like that. But to be honest, I don't care. I've gotten to the point now where if it goes longer and straighter than the previous one, you can paint it out any color you want.
I'm kind of the same way. I mean, I'll come out and just say it. I like kind of that copper color a little better. Just it was kind of classy looking, so I'll just say it. But yeah, the colors now it wouldn't stop me from trying, buying, or playing it at all. So yeah. I don't mind them.
And then I think with the whole line as well, they've really again focused on the fitting aspect, and they're stressing that still because of the way that they were helping fit their tour players. This weight and this adjustability just gives greater options to that fitter. So when someone does go out and get fit, either uses a stock shaft or uses the one that are like the additional options, you're going to get something that is going to work really well. And then on top of finding the head and shaft combination and loft and setting, then the fine tuning of the weight. And again, as I said before, you just have the 3 settings. Because it's really, as you mentioned, pushing the mass around to the absolute maximum parts of the club head instead of like tweaking with half settings and those kind of things. Not that those aren't useful, but as far as simplicity goes, a lot of people never really change it. So if you're going to set it once, then you kind of set it and forget it.
It's true. I mean, it all comes down to that. I mean, I look at players like my dad, who he's got adjustable weights on his current driver, and once he set it up, it's never been changed. So once he got it and he set it up for his kind of max draw setting, that was it. And it's been probably 2 years or 3 years. And I can guarantee if I went in his bag right now, it's set up the exact same way it was the day he got it. So, but the drivers look really good. I'm excited. I haven't been able to hit them yet. Unfortunately, demo day, we were slammed busy. So I didn't get a chance to actually physically hit one yet, but I'm excited to get to try it. And then, we move on to fairway woods. And fairway woods, we do see 3 new fairway woods. So
yeah, if it's any indication of what's coming with the driver, the fairway woods are kind of that little hint at us.
Exactly, and again, same hosel adjustment. We go to more adjustment in the hosel, so new adapter. You're able to have more settings on there, which is great. I really like that for a fairway wood because for me, I hit kind of a flat ball with a 3 wood, so I don't mind adding a little bit of loft just to help me kind of maximize that launch. And this is definitely going to give me more options there in the 410 line, in the 410 fairway.
They've got the new, they've got an improved steel face on it, help with ball speed. They've refined the shape again. They kind of seem to go back and forth. They're like, sometimes they go a little deeper, then they go a little shallower, but it becomes down to center of gravity. If you can maximize it with deeper and still keep it low and make it more forgiving, those kind of things. And they're kind of like rated between. With the way I looked at it, it was kind of rated in between. You obviously have like something really old school, like a G10. I remember I had one of those fairways. I loved it, and it was super shallow. You could get like the strong through it up in the air, no problem. And as you say, right, with the amount of lofts that are available as well as the adjustability, you're just going to be able to fit all those different loft gaps. As from a fitting perspective, the way I always look at a golf bag is if you take the putter out of the equation, you've got 13 clubs or 13 tools. that you can hit, and you want to have every single one of those tools kind of for a specific distance or for a specific shot. If you have two clubs that overlap, that's not going to work. If you have a big gap between two tools and you have something there you can't really hit shots with, then again, there's a weakness there. So what all these adjustability like pieces of these golf clubs do is allow you to find a club for every distance or every shot that you hit on your golf course or in tournament play if you travel around. And it's just maximizing every single aspect of every club in your bag.
Yep. And with this one here, again, we've got, no movable weights on the back, but each one does have kind of a weight in the back positioned differently. So the standard G410, it's kind of slightly off kilter, not quite in the full draw setting, but it's just off. And then the SFT is going to be slightly more towards the heel than any of them. And then, of course, LST, which is dead neutral to probably offer the most neutral ball flight out of all of them. So there's still a weight there. It's just not movable, but still influences ball flight. And LST is going to be most compact. It's actually a more compact head, along with being, the most neutrally biased ball flight.
Yeah, and they, as I said before, like they really only put out products that they feel are better than previous models. And in a lot of their kind of literature, they even talk about how like what the percentage increases are. They're one of the few companies that is willing to kind of talk about that. Yeah. Which is always really impressive because they want to be able to justify to a consumer going out that if you had the previous model, this is how it's better. But as we talked about before, what this also means is the fact that we know that we are in a position where we change golf clubs, or we have the opportunity to change golf clubs and test golf clubs a lot. But we know the average consumer is not going to go out there. If you have a 400, you're probably not going to get a 410. We're talking about the general consumer. So if you have a G5 and you try this, you're going to see probably a bigger improvement than you would have if you had just the previous year's model. And this is where those percentage benefits really add up. If you got 2% over 4 generations, you've got 8%, right? And that 8% is a lot. For 200 yards, is 16 yards.
Yeah.
And that's pretty big improvement if you consider the fact that if you go get custom fit and you're finding something where you're maxing out what you're using for your golf ball and the shots you're going to hit with that golf club, then you're going to find a better club to fit in that space of your toolbox.
Yeah, and even like you said, 8% distance, and I was going to use that exact same analogy. 200 yards is 16 yards, but it's the same thing with dispersion. I mean, if it's 8% better over over 4 generations, 8% better, and that you went from 50 yards now down to you knock off another what 16% or 8% of that. I don't know. I can't do math, but whatever. I mean, you're the same thing. You're gonna tighten that dispersion up. It's gonna be a more accurate club. Now with the fairways, the only thing that I'll say from my point of view, and this is just personal for me, is that they definitely are shallow. And I'm a guy who likes to hit 3-wood off the tee quite frequently. The course I play at home a lot is short, so I like to hit 3-woods off the tee. It definitely, I'm not saying it's not going to stop me from trying it, but it does kind of push me away just a touch of how shallow the faces are on that, just because I like to tee it up a little bit and hit it and play it off the tee box.
Yeah, and I'm the same way. I hit a lot of 3-woods off the tee, but I'm someone who doesn't really tee it up a lot. So again, what things are going to work for different people, and that's why we do these discussions, right? Because we think that there's certain players that these clubs are going to fit, and certain people that may gravitate towards them more than others. And this is a perfect example where we actually don't necessarily agree all the way on what would work for us, because I know that I prefer something shallow. If it does happen to be lower spinning and shallow, then all for it, because again, not being a longer player, I like using a lot of 3-woods into par 5s or into those holes, whereas I pull driver a lot.
Yeah, like I said, for me, I don't hit 3-woods in par 5s much, just because either if I have that distance, it's probably not a safe shot or a comfortable shot for me. So, but no, I totally, like you said, totally get it. And that's also too why there's 3 different models. I mean, everybody's going to play a slightly different 3-wood where, LST might appeal to me more, where standard G410 may appeal to you. It just kind of depends. But I like that they're offering 3 different heads and kind of 3 different options for every player out there to at least have something to try and potentially, work out for them.
Especially in the SFT, because you see a lot of people, and the 3-wood is their go-to club, especially talking about the average player that hits their driver 220 yards, that when you pull that 3-wood out, to use it as a club that's going to really minimize a miss, and being able to use more mass, again, just like they did with the driver, to move more mass to make it more biased, to just help those players more, is, again, it just makes it one of those clubs where, if you haven't upgraded in a while, it could be one of the, could be a big winner.
True. Very true. So then we move on to hybrids. And me personally, I love the idea because, one, adjustable hosels offer me the ability to go buy tips, buy a bunch of shafts, try them all out. But it offers people the ability to really fine tune that gapping, because hybrids have turned into, I won't necessarily call them scoring clubs, but they become clubs that you're not just trying to hit as far as you can. I mean, they're meant to hit a specific distance. They're meant to go higher, maybe a little longer than the iron it's replacing, and to have the ability to kind of fine tune that loft to really dial in those gaps, I think is great. But I'm pretty excited that they're finally offering this, in a hybrid.
What this does for their perspective is put their hybrids more in line with their irons as far as the adjustability goes. It doesn't mean they didn't offer it before, because I can attest to the fact that where I used to work, we on many occasions custom ordered. They were ping answers at the time, flat or upright, or had them digitally lofted to fit specifically into players' bags, especially flat. And they would come with the little color code to show that it was bent flat, which was really cool. So they have offered this, but with that offering, it was a little bit more expensive because you paid for the digital lofting, you paid for the bending of the hybrid, or to have one hand picked that was maybe just a little bit flatter. You pay for that. There's a little bit longer wait, not a longer wait, but a couple days in custom build isn't a huge deal, but they just add up to the fact that it's a little bit more difficult to get them, and people don't realize that it is an option. I worked at a pretty high volume custom fitting shop, so because of that, it was one of the things that we knew about. We could go through and we could explain to the customer, but generally day to day, somebody walks into a retail store or walks into a pro shop doesn't necessarily know, or their person who's selling them doesn't necessarily know those options. And what this adjustable hosel does is, allow someone to go out to the golf course. If they find there's a gap distance, they can adjust it themselves. And then from a fitting perspective as well, you can, as you say, dial in those lofts and maybe hit a little higher, hit a little lower, and then up to 3 degrees total lie adjustability. Yeah, 3 degrees total lie adjustability. If you think about how much that can affect ball flight and initial launch direction from a lie angle perspective, you can dial in dispersion and, as you say, make hybrids more of a scoring club, as they kind of have become those.
410 now comes down to a 6-iron. So, I mean, a 6-iron for a lot of people, I mean, that's a club they regularly hit into par 3s or even par 4s. And like I said, it's not necessarily scoring, but it's an important club to get people on the green, get them close to the hole. And like you said, being able to kind of adjust it almost like an iron to make it upright or flat to kind of match sets is really a huge thing. And for freaks like me who like to go to the range with 3 different hybrid shafts, it definitely helps me out as well.
Yeah, and from that fitting, and I know I touch on a lot, but it's because it's so crucial for people at different swing speeds. If they have those low lofted hybrids and someone's looking to just open it up and not have that miss left, which is kind of the typical thing that a lot of people associate with hybrids, all the way down to the average lady golfer or slower swing speed senior who uses those 6 and 5 iron hybrids out of the rough, or needs something that's going to get through and get some speed and offers that adjustability, so they don't feel like, it's a little longer than my standard iron, but because of that, I find that I pull it a little bit more, all those different aspects. So this seems simple because other companies have offered it in the past, but Ping always has that way of doing something just a little bit differently to kind of match up with those, go to the woods and go to the irons, to just, as I said, fit those tools in to make sure that you find the right distance gap, you're finding the right ball flight, and then hit it closer to the hole.
I mean, that's the end goal. Now with these, the faces again are really shallow. As someone who's played, my hybrid is probably the oldest club in my bag, and it is a little deeper faced and it's a little more compact. But that is the one thing that out of the rough, I'm going to be a little nervous with this club only because of how shallow it is. I'm worried that I'm going to kind of strike the ball a lot higher in the face, especially if it's sitting up in the rough. But it is a really shallow face on this, which would be great for the fairway because you'll be able to, hit it, launch it really high. But out of the rough, I'm a little concerned with it only because I know my game. So for me, this one, I'm going to have to test it to see if it would have a chance to make my bag.
One of the other options, which I know we didn't touch off the top, is the new crossover.
Yeah, true.
So just like we have, I know we talked about it before with like the TaylorMade and how the gapper would fit necessarily into those higher lofted fairway woods. They have that option for the lower launch. This is that same category where it is more of the driving iron style for this stronger player who wants a thing that looks more like an iron. Not me.
Not me either.
And then what it also does is full lie adjustability with the
True.
crossover, and fully admitted on their part, and I think most people would agree that it looks a lot better than the previous model. It looks a lot cleaner.
100%. Yeah,
Uh,
definitely.
they they definitely packed a lot of technology into the previous crossover, and what they've done is just like with the 410 iron, is they've solved the problem of how can we create something that offers the same amount of technology, same amount of ball speed, same amount of MOI or close to it in a much smaller, cleaner looking package, and they've definitely done that with the crossover, like the new one.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I didn't even think about that because it's not like right out there new with the 410 name on it. But you're 100% right. The previous crossovers, I've never really loved the look. They were just either had too much offset or they just had kind of a chunky, roundish look to them. The new one is definitely a lot better. I was really impressed when I saw it in terms of looks. Again, haven't had a chance to really hit it yet, but that definitely is a club that I like the looks of. And I'm not a driving iron guy, but it definitely could make the bag for me, I
I
think.
th- the sound as well, I think, was a little bit more solid. Like watching people and being around the range and seeing a lot of people hit them, the different handicap levels and different swing speeds. That was actually one of the cool things about being at the show and being at PJ show and demo day is when we're standing there and we're talking to people, we're able to observe a lot of golfers try them out. And they had ping head fitters there, so they were really making sure that these people were getting fit into clubs that were going to work better for them than just kind of going in and being like, "Can I hit this?" kind of thing. And there was definitely an improvement in the sound, and it, as you say, so the look, as we talked about, it's a lot more closer to the Answer driving
Mhm.
iron, which was a fantastic looking golf club. I know it was a big hit, although from a price point perspective, when it first launched, it was definitely on the higher end of the driving iron category. But I remember it was like Angel Cabrera and those were using it at the Open Championship. And
Yep.
people were like, "What is this driving iron? What is this driving iron?" And this is more. It's not quite that small. I think there's more technology in this golf club, but it's more along the lines of a much more compact looking.
Yeah. And speaking of compact looking, you bring it kind of into our the next thing, which is G410 iron. So not the huge shovel that everybody kind of expects from Ping. Definitely a little more compact, uh, solid looking iron, but some new technology as well. Little thinner face. It's got new weight port, but just an overall better looking. Like I think you mentioned it before, a better looking package with all the tech, all the forgiveness, all the distance that you expect from Ping.
Yeah, they're talking to their engineering team was really helpful in the fact that they're always there to solve problems. It's what can we do to when it comes to releasing new product or coming up with a product, it's what problem are you trying to solve today or what problem are you trying to solve with this product with this club. And I think that's really important because it outlines their whole philosophy on constant improvement. And the 410 or sorry, the 400 G400 is an awesome iron.
Yep.
It's a like you probably find those in bags all over the place. And what they've done is they've taken that package, that technology, and they've, as I said, they've made it into a smaller golf club with the same MOI. So for people who want something that looks maybe a little cleaner or not quite as big, they've just packed all of that technology into a smaller looking golf club because it is smaller, not just smaller
Yeah.
looking, and they've changed the transitions around a little bit on the hosel so it looks a little cleaner, looks a little sharper, and then increased ball speed and just kept MOI the same or increased it by also really changing the way they designed the club overall.
Yeah. And I mean, like part of the design is now there's actually a weight in the toe, which I think we saw it on some previous irons that we thought would be, oh, these are hollow. They're not. It's actually just a weight port. And it's again moving more weight out, increasing that MOI. I think they said that moving that weight out to the toe increased forgiveness by like 8%. So again, it's nothing crazy if you're going from G400 to G410. But like you said, if you're going from something like, a G5 iron to this, you're going to notice a big improvement. They also again over the power spec where you can get everything kind of about a degree
Yeah,
strong, which for some users people don't like the fact that lofts get jacked up, but it is what it is, man. People want to hit the ball farther, and it's the ability for those people who don't quite hit it as far as they either used to or want to. to kind of catch up and maybe play a club up or something like that.
You could talk all day about loft specs and all those things, and what it comes down to is hitting launch windows. And they talk about it with the i500 and how it is a stronger golf club, but the rebounding in the face and the COR in the club face launches the ball so high that they need to have those stronger lofts. But even though the club spins less, what they're doing is they're controlling the landing angles to help the ball stop on the green. So it's not coming in like a bullet. It's actually coming in soft enough to hold, which is important. And even with something like the power spec, they're able to get a golf club which has a very low center of gravity. And when you get them into the right players, even if it means just going to a 7-iron and then going into that 6 hybrid, you're able to hit those launch windows of, for a better player, you're looking at around 100 feet in the air, give or take some percentage points depending on ball speed. But for some players who will never ever be able to get the speed and to create the spin, to create that launch, if that means 60 feet in the air, but it goes, let's say 80 yards and lands soft on the green with an 8-iron or 6-iron or whatever it happens to be for that player with that swing speed, then they're able to hold the green a lot more. Because, you probably see it a lot when you're out playing, you watch groups and people with some slower swing speeds, all they do is they just launch these little knucklers out there that don't even hardly get head high. And then they end up going to a golf course where there's some forced carries into greens or there's hazards, and it doesn't make the game very fun. And by able to get clubs that have these, although they may have stronger lofts, being able to get the carry out of them is really important, because you want that ball to stop.
Definitely. And you're right. You can go on forever about jack lofts, but yeah, you couldn't take an old blade from, the old days, crank it down to whatever loft and try to hit it. It's just not going to work the same. So, well, the problem is there's some stronger players who can probably get away with it and make it work. And then, those are the people who complain about lofts, but whatever.
To use a perfect example is Cameron Champ, and he's got 2 4-irons in his bag. Although the lofts are relatively similar with the i500 versus his iBlade, I think that's the transition. I'd have to go through our what's in the bag to see really what it is. But I remember that was a talking point of why does he have 2 4-irons, and it's because one launches higher and goes further because it's got a hotter club face, it's got a lower center of gravity, and it's, even though they are the same iron, they definitely fit differently in. So he gets all of that out of the golf club, and we saw that with Tony Finau using the i500 and trying them out and testing them out. And with the iron as well, as you talk about the weight port, not only have they added weight in the toe and thinned out the club face, they've actually added weight in the hosel. Tipping had never used tip weights. As a builder, they had never ever used tip weights. They'd always used the custom tuning port. But what that did was it positioned the center of mass in behind the sweet spot, which was great, but it sacrifices some MOI. And again, being able to talk to Paul Wood at the show, we did that interview, which was great. He talked about how each iron, just like when they would build previously, they would put it on the swing weight scale. They would determine which weight the custom tuning port will be, and then they'd stick it in the back of the club head. Whereas now, what they're able to do is they know what the set specs are going to be, and instead of just sticking all that weight on the toe, they actually split that weight. So let's say the head needs 10 grams, they take 5 grams, and they position it on either side of the club head. So you've stretched the mass out further around the perimeter and made a more forgiving golf club without changing anything else. You've added the weight, you keep the weight the same, you allow for swing weighting, you allow for vibration dampening behind the club face, but you've just moved all the mass that would have been a custom tuning port right on the edges, which again is that improvement that we're looking for.
Definitely. So yeah,
I just went real deep on the on the tech story. That's
which
right.
Is great. So out of all that stuff there, as we ask at the end of every one of these, what is the one that you're looking forward to the most to hit?
Well, if there is an LS Tech driver, it would probably be that.
Gotcha.
But to be honest, other than that, I've always had difficulty with the hybrid. I've used, again, to not mention other brands as well, I've used old Adams hybrids before because they were always a little bit flatter. Callaway and their Apex, like the previous models, a lot of times they were, again, those smaller looking hybrids, but none of those offered adjustability. And the ones that did offer adjustability were things like the TaylorMade or a PXG, things along those lines, but they don't offer the same amount of adjustability. So now, for me, who uses a 3-wood and a 5-wood and has a 3 or a 4 iron that's a little stronger sometimes, this would be that club where I could just like crank it open. It is shallower. I'm going to hit it into a lot of the greens, long par 3s. That would be a club for me that I'm definitely like really looking to try. How about you?
Okay. I'm going to go 3 woods. I really want to try, standard and LST. I think, again, a club that's actually been in my bag a while. It's a hard club for me to change, but I really like the look. I think the forgiveness and the adjustability, all that. I have a feeling I'll be able to dial one in. So I'm really looking forward to hitting 3 wood and seeing if I can get comfortable with one of those. So, I mean, I'm still going to hit driver and all that anyway, but 3 wood I think is the one that I'm looking forward to the most.
I think for a lot of players, the iron's going to be the standout.
You're probably right.
Again, it's not a club that I would necessarily play. Just kind of where it fits into the line, I would be more along the lines of the iBlade player or a Blueprint player. Now that we know that is like the official name for it, again, we're not really sure on if retail is an option or not or yet, but it'd be more along the lines of that kind of golf club. But the iron for most people is where, ping always kind of gets the bad. Oh, it looks like a ping. Right? Well, why does it looks like a ping have to be a bad thing? And I've used i5s and I've used like a lot of different ping irons in the I series. I think in G series, I've used a G4, G2 irons way back. And this for that, say, mid-level handicapper who wants to play something like more along the lines of the I series, but needs that additional forgiveness. This iron is going to be the standout in the line. From like, again, if you haven't upgraded in a long time, the irons for a lot of people are where they're going to see, wow, I can hit it higher, I can land them soft, and it doesn't get affected by the wind because it's not spinning a lot, and I still get that forgiveness.
Yeah. No, I think you're totally right. I mean, especially because the G400 was so popular, and like you mentioned earlier, G400 to G410, are you going to see a monster difference? Probably not. That's not the guy who's probably going to switch. But iron-wise, like you said, it's probably going to be a huge upgrade for a lot of people, moving into that iron. So it'll be exciting to see.
Yeah, if you've been fit before, as you say, it's going to be really difficult. It is difficult to justify, say, a couple percentage points if it means another $1,000 for a set of irons. And I understand that as someone who goes out and buys golf equipment and has friends that go out and buy golf equipment, and it's hard to say to them, oh yeah, you'll notice a big difference, when they really probably won't, and I don't want to lie to them about it. But if they haven't upgraded in a long time and they go out and try something new, you're going to see those windows increase, you're going to see the land niggles increase, and you're just going to hit a better golf shot.
Agree, totally. So awesome. Well, that is the G410 whole lineup, and it was fun chatting with you again on this. And we'll have to pick on another topic and see what else we can discuss in the future.
Yeah, who's coming out with something new next?
Somebody's bound to be. So
yeah, we'll see it soon.
That's right. All right. Well, this is Barath Knudson for GolfWRX, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks so much.